If we haven't met, I'm Eric. I get to serve as one of the pastors on the team around here. Really glad that you chose to attend today and be here in church with us. And if it's your first time, so glad that you're here. Thanks for trying something new. I get that can be a little stressful and a little scary. If it's your first time, there's a little connection card in the seat in front of you. You don't have to, but if you would like to, you can fill it out. It's like the easiest way, the best way for us to connect with you and serve you wherever you're at in your journey. You can take it to the Next Steps area out there, the other side of the wall. And we just have a mug, this exact mug, to gift to you, just to say thanks for spending a part of your Sunday with us. And as always, if this is your home church, that connection card is an easy way for you to get involved, take a next step, ask for prayer, ask to meet with a pastor, ask a question. So use that card in any way that you think it might be helpful for you. It's good to be back, by the way. I was at our South Jordan campus last week. All 4 services, all 900 people hanging out over there. They are doing a great job. They have 6 Easter services, everybody. 6, all right? That's a lot of Easter services. 2 are on Saturday over there. I don't know if you're like the Saturday type. Maybe you want to hit up their Easter. Just don't call it Easter morning, all right? Because it's Saturday night. But just so excited for what's going on there across all of our campuses. I'm going to give you guys a little update next Sunday on some cool stuff going on. This is the moment where we jump into the Bible together, and we learn, and we read, and we study, and we reflect. I'm excited about that. But I want to begin with a quick story. A couple years ago, some guys from church, some of my buddies, we got into some vans, and we drove down to Moab, Utah for a guys' mountain biking weekend. All right, we went mountain biking. It was my birthday. It was June. All right, it was June. It was my birthday. It was my birthday trip with the boys, and I was really excited to be there. And so we got down. It was hot. It was dusty, it was dry, it was June in Moab, all right? And so we get the bikes, we unpack, we set up the tents, and we decide to go to the first trail of the weekend, which is a trail called Captain Ahab, all right? Captain Ahab. If you are a mountain biker, you know this trail. If you're not, you're like, weird name, I know, weird name. But we started out on the trail, and it's uphill, and it's dry, and it's dusty, and it's hot, and it's chunky. Chunky is mountain bike lingo for like big rocks, thick stuff, you know? So it's chunky, and we get to the top, and it was awesome. It was one of those like Utah vistas where you just kind of look out over the horizon and there's canyons and gullies and it's rock outcroppings. It's just so cool. So we got to the top, but out of the corner of our eye, we see this dark storm cloud forming. One of those summer storms in Utah that just comes out of nowhere. And it starts to form, and we're thinking we have a few moments to like get off the mountain before it hits. And sure enough, like 15 minutes later, this turns from a birthday gift of a weekend to like an evil nightmare that we just wanted to get through and survive, all right? Because pretty quickly we start heading down the trail, and the wind is so intense, so fierce, that if I would just hold my bike, it would just swing my bike around like dials on a clock. I mean, it was just twisting. It was like you could hardly ride, you could hardly pedal. And then the hail was so big, it was hitting my face. It felt like pellets from a pellet gun at like 20 feet. I've never been hit with pellets in the face, but like that's what I imagine it feels like. And mind you, Ahab is not like an easy stroll, all right? It's not like a dirt trail. We're trying to get down in the wind and the hail, and the cliff is just right here. It's a sheer death, right? I mean, it is a sudden drop to one's demise, all right? I was legitimately afraid. I was terrified, all right? And we get to the bottom, and we survived, everybody. We survived the trip. And my friend Shane did what all good friends do after a moment like that. He made a YouTube video about it, all right? You can go watch it. Not very many people have watched it, but you can go watch it. This is the day, that's the day that we survived Captain Ahab. Now, I tell you all of this because in moments like that, and I've had others, I'm sure you've had some moments like this. In moments like that, we are just reminded of something that we often forget. So let me remind you of it. No matter how advanced we become, how much we progress, how many tools, strategies, tips, or tricks we have, no matter how advanced we as a culture become, reality, well, it'll hit and it'll come for us. Reality still humbles us out of our illusion of control. And you know this, like culturally, we have more tools and trackers and apps and devices than ever before. I can track my heart rate. I can track my sleep. I can count my calories. I can track my packages. I can order my groceries, all from the convenience of my couch, all right? Like, that is crazy. I have apps for the traffic, apps for the weather, apps for my wife's cell phone location. I don't like keep tabs on her, but you get what I'm saying. She loses it, and we gotta go find it. And so we got apps for that. I got apps for my apps, all right? I got apps for my apps. We have more tools than ever before. And yet there are still moments in this life where we cannot control this life. All of the tools, all the advancements, and we still can't control what is going on in this life. Like, anxiety is through the roof, and all the tools can't displace the fear that we have. We experience moments like this. There will be a time that reality comes your way. Nature will come knocking. That which is beyond your control will show up. Earthquake, fire, storm, disease, cancer, war, and when it does, it doesn't check your calendar to see if it's a good time, all right? It will just come. And in those moments, we are reminded of the thing I was reminded of in Moab. I'm not in control of this thing. I'm not in control of this thing. And then there's a question that gets asked. It's the age-old question in all of these out-of-control moments. It's the age-old question that's been asked across all generations. God, don't you care? God, don't you care? I mean, this is the question that always follows. Don't you care? Don't you see? Don't I matter? Won't you fix this? Won't you do something? Like, won't you act? Do you care? Do you see what I'm going through? I mean, this is the question that follows. And at first, this question is not a question that like leads to all-out agnosticism or atheism. It's not the question that leads us to doubt his existence, maybe at first at least. Usually it's a question where we maybe don't think he's powerful. Maybe we doubt his power, because why wouldn't he do something or stop this? Or we doubt his wisdom. Does he really know what's going on? Can he really see the big picture and do what's loving or in my best interest? And then we begin to doubt his love. Is he really good at all? Because if he has the power to do something and doesn't, I'm not sure he's a good and loving God. Those are the initial questions. And then eventually when you ask those questions enough, you wind up so frustrated with God that you might just walk away from him. And some of you are here recovering from a moment like that. Some of you are here in the midst of a moment like that. And some of you have grown through moments like that. I'm just glad you're here. Today, what we're gonna see in the text is that this is the exact question the disciples asked in the midst of their emergency, their crisis, their natural disaster, their storm. Don't you care? This is week 5 of a series called The Real Jesus. And in this series, we've been studying Mark's gospel. The New Testament opens up with Matthew, but then it goes to Mark. Mark's gospel is the shortest. It's the oldest. It was written first. It is action-packed. It is laser-focused, and it is written from Peter's eyewitness perspective. Peter is recalling his memories of his times with Jesus to Mark, his close friend and his mentee, if you will. And so Mark writes it down. Now, when it comes to reading a story like this, one of the reasons it doesn't hit us like it probably should is we've heard it before. When I read about calming the sea, you're like, been there, done that, bro. I could preach this sermon. I know what you're gonna say already, Eric. He calmed a storm. We all got storms. He'll calm your storm too. Can we just go home? All right? I know that's what you're thinking. That would be bad preaching, by the way, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. Can you suspend what you know about this passage for the next 20 minutes so that it hits afresh? And I want to work really hard to help it hit afresh today. So let's go back through it and begin to pick apart some things that are important. Notice some things that maybe we didn't see the first time. Verse 35, that day when evening came, so it's getting later, he said to his disciples, let us go over to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, leaving the crowd behind. Remember, Jesus' popularity is growing, he's going viral because of what he's done and what he said. And so they took him along. They took Jesus along just as he was in the boat. So they didn't plan this, they didn't prepare this. This wasn't like a survival moment. This is just a normal evening for them. There were also other boats with him. Interesting detail, other boats. Talk about that in a moment. And a furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. A way to translate the word swamped would be the boat was filling up. It was filling up, and therefore it was going down, all right? filling up, and then it was sinking, all right? Verse 38, Jesus was in the stern. Is that the front or the back? I'm not sure. Jesus is like somewhere else in the boat, all right? Sleeping on a cushion. Interesting detail. The disciples woke him up, and they said, and here it comes, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown? Don't you care if we die?" Because that's where this is all headed. We are about to die. He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, so he kind of spoke to the storm, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm, like glass. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" All right, let's unpack this. The guys in the boat, the fishermen that he's with, these are not amateurs. These are professionals. The Sea of Galilee was a hotbed for the fishing industry, and these young men, they had grown up in the region. They had spent nearly every day by the sea. They fished it professionally. They knew every inlet, every depth, every rock, every cutout in the shoreline. I mean, they knew it in and out, and they knew these storms. They had seen them before. Not only was the Sea of Galilee known for its fishing, it was known for its storms. Huge storms would form over the Sea of Galilee, specifically because of the topography of the region. Some of you have maybe been there. The Sea of Galilee, it really sits in like a bowl, kind of forms a natural amphitheater, and it's 700 feet below sea level, and it's surrounded by cliffs and ravines and valleys. And what can happen is that the weather can change, of course, up above, and the wind rushes down through the valleys and creates like this wind tunnel, kind of like if you live near, the Cottonwood Canyons, like wind tunnel, all right? Or just Utah. It's like a wind tunnel everywhere. And the wind comes, and what happens is it drives the cold air from above, and it meets the moist, warm air from the sea, and boom! When that happens, you have an incredible storm. Additionally, the Sea of Galilee is pretty shallow, and so quickly with that type of storm, the waves become incredibly steep, the type of waves that would easily take down a small fishing boat. It's a little bit like Utah Lake, although Utah Lake is bigger. If you've ever seen Utah Lake, you know that a storm can form there very, very quickly. Like every summer, unfortunately, there's like a fatality of someone who was out on Utah Lake, and all of a sudden the storm came and the seas ripped up, and it turned into chaos and destruction, like very quickly. Like this happens locally. It happened in the first century on the Sea of Galilee. And so these fishermen, the fact that they're terrified for their lives is incredible. It is that type of storm. The type of storm that they knew could kill a man. The type of storm that has killed before. The type of storm that could kill again. They know that this is that type of storm. And so they say to Jesus, "Where are you? Don't you care?" It's the age-old statement. And we fill it in a bunch of ways. Don't you care if? Don't you care if? I mean, the disciples filled it in, "Don't you care if I die?" That's how the disciples filled it in. "Don't you care if I die?" But we fill it in many, many ways. Perhaps it's that, "Jesus, don't you care if I die?" But it could be, "Don't you care if I'm alone? Don't you care if I'm hurting? Don't you care if I'm suffering? Don't you care if I'm still in debt? Don't you care if I'm anxious? Don't you care about what I am going through?" It's the age-old question that, comes out during these tough moments, during these incredibly tough times. Don't you care? Now, built into that statement in question is a premise. And we have to challenge the premise. Built into the "don't you care if" is this premise. If he cared, he wouldn't allow. If he cared, I wouldn't be going through this. And that is a premise that we have to challenge. They believed that if Jesus was really God, he would never allow them to experience something difficult. And if you've been raised in religion, if you've been raised in the West, you probably have that premise in you too, that God is here to keep me from moments like this. And this story lets us know that there's more than that in the story. There's more going on. And I want to take us into that. But first, before we get into all of that, I want to help this story hit. And to help it hit, we need to know something about ancient culture. Ancient cultures throughout kind of the human history viewed the sea as a place of chaos and destruction. The sea was a place of uncontrollable chaos that would engulf people, that would take life. It was a scary place. It was like a place you didn't want to go. It was uncontrollable by humans, but only controllable by the gods. That's how they viewed the sea. And so every culture had a sea god, all right? Every culture had a sea god. The Greeks had Poseidon and Triton. If you grew up on Disney, you're like, I think I've heard of that. And the Romans had Neptune. If you have a hot tub, you're like, I've heard of the Neptune hot tub company, right? I think that's a hot tub company. Like, we love to take like ancient gods and name them things today. The Canaanites had a sea god. The Egyptians had a sea god. Polynesian culture had a sea god. If you've ever seen the movie Moana, you know about that sea god. His name is Maui, all right? That's the Polynesian sea god, all right? And they believed that the seas were a place of chaos and torture and pain and destruction, and only their God could rule over it. And then Jesus shows up on the scene, and when the sea goes crazy, and when the storm comes, they think, where is our God? He's asleep on the boat. And he wakes up, and he doesn't summon another God, he doesn't sacrifice to another God, he doesn't pray for power from on high from another God. He just does it, because he is power on high. And the sea goes completely calm. Here's what I want you to know. The real Jesus has limitless power. The real Jesus has limitless power. That's part one in this scene, is that we would know that. Now, for us to help this, for this to sink in, I want to help us by talking a little bit about what this would look like today. Because for us, we're like a nice little storm on a small little sea on the other side of the world. Like, all right, whatever. Let me try to unpack it. Imagine for just a moment that the whole Western power grid, the power grid that charges your phone, the whole Western power grid went down for a moment. Just anything that has power, it goes dark. It stops working. Traffic lights, they go down. Hospitals run on generators until the generators run out. You cannot charge your phone. You have no Wi-Fi. You cannot watch Netflix, all right? Like this is bad, okay? Chaos and destruction everywhere. Food is going bad. There's no refrigeration. Some of you are like, I saw this on Netflix. This is an apocalyptic show. I've seen a few of those. Just imagine the moment. And then there's one person you've heard about. He's been teaching. You've heard stories about what he's done. And then you actually see him in a moment speak, and darkness becomes light. Powerless becomes power. Chaos becomes a working world again. Wow. I mean, I'm trying to do the best I can to help a moment like this hit in the way that it hit then. The most scary, chaotic thing they could possibly know that meant sudden death. Jesus speaks to it, and it's calm. That's the type of power that Mark is presenting to us in the person of Jesus. Now, when this happens, what happens next is really, really interesting. The disciples didn't say, oh good, Jesus is with us. They didn't sing Kumbaya. They didn't sing the song Oceans, okay? They didn't get a bumper sticker on the boat, I'm with him, you know? They didn't do any of that. It wasn't like, praise ye the Lord, hallelujah, okay? Here's what happened. Verse 41, they were terrified. They were terrified. And they asked each other, who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him. They're frightened, they're terrified, they're shocked. We thought we knew who he was. Maybe just a rabbi who could do a little bit of healing, someone who could teach and that was getting pretty popular. But one who is over the sea, one who is more powerful than all the sea gods, one who can control that is with us. They were terrified. Now, a quick detour. One of the reasons that we know Mark is actually recording eyewitness events, Peter's recalling this, and Mark's writing it down, is because this doesn't read like fable, fiction, or myth. And I just want to point out a few ways that we know that. Fable, fiction, and myth, it doesn't use irrelevant details and embarrassing details when it builds its story, all right? Fables and myths and fiction don't include irrelevant details because irrelevant details do not build the plot line and they do not develop the characters. All right, if you're making it up, you keep it to just the main things to build the story, okay? But what we see here is irrelevant detail. The type of irrelevant detail that an eyewitness would include when they were talking about the day. And we see a few of those. A cushion, okay? What a unique detail. Great fables, great myths. The work of, the Odyssey, Homer's Iliad, like they don't talk about like that type of just random weird detail. There were other boats around. It wasn't like one central boat and we're gonna build this whole thing. There are other boats. There were other boats. He was asleep, You're like, why these weird, irrelevant details? Because this is actually what was happening. And then in the end, the disciples, well, they are cowards. They're terrified. That is embarrassing detail that you just wouldn't include if you were making up a religion and writing a text to make yourself the hero so that you can benefit with, pleasure and power and purpose and wealth through all of it, prosperity through all of it. You wouldn't do that. So the fact that these irrelevant details and embarrassing details are there is because, well, it was all actually there. It's how it actually happened. And here's, I think, why they were terrified. We're comfortable with power as long as it's power that we can leverage for our benefit, that we can subscribe to, that we can cancel, power that builds up our storyline, power that helps us control our narrative and control our world. But what happens when you see power that's uncontrollable? It is really unsettling, especially if you're not sure if that power is good or not, if that power is wise or loving or not. If you can't manage the storm, you can't manage the one who can manage the storm. And this is what they're learning quickly. If you can't manage the storm, you can't manage Jesus. And so they are incredibly uncomfortable for the moment with this type of power right in front of them. If Jesus was someone we could manage, he would be a trick, a method, a strategy, a tool to add more control into our lives. But he is not, and we see that in this passage. They could not control him. He was uncontrollable. And the thing that they could not control, the storm, Jesus could actually control because the real Jesus has limitless power. And if he has limitless power, he's not a tactic or tool or a strategy that we can leverage for our own purposes. It tells us that he's really God. He's God. And that's part one of this story, of really this message. Now, at this point, I want to go a little bit deeper for a moment. And I don't have a ton of time to talk about this, but I want to talk about it rather briefly. Jesus doesn't just have limitless power. And how he goes about this story and how he acts, what he doesn't do and what he does do, we learn something about him. He also has limitless wisdom. Limitless wisdom. See, it's not just that he has power to calm the storm. He actually allowed the storm to happen, though. And if he had power to stop the storm, didn't he have power to prevent the storm in the first place? And yet he chose not to. And this makes us a little uncomfortable, especially if you've bought into the premise that Jesus' main job is to keep you happy, healthy, and safe, okay? If that premise lives in you, this is a tough moment, all right? This is a tough moment. Because once again, we think, why did he allow this to happen? But listen, if he has limitless power and knows exactly what's going on, wouldn't it also imply that he knows things that we just don't know? He knows things that we do not know. And he can work good from things that are not good. And in this passage specifically, we see him do something incredibly good from something that wasn't. The storm. Now I want to be really careful. I want to say this really clearly. Jesus did not cause this storm. He is not the author of destruction. He is not the creator or source of chaos, evil, or pain. In the grand story of all things, there is another source for that. It's another sermon for another day. But he is present in the middle of it. Now, here's what I need you to know. If you are trying to evaluate God's existence based on your circumstance, you are looking at the wrong place. We measure and we evaluate his goodness, his faithfulness, and his existence not by the presence of something difficult in our life, not by a storm. We measure it by something else. And it's where Mark's whole gospel is driving us towards. We measure it by the cross. So what was the good that Jesus was doing in the midst of this moment? His infinite wisdom, his limitless wisdom in allowing a storm to happen in the first place, it was to reveal to the disciples that he is not just a rabbi and he is not just a sea god. He is the limitless, most powerful God over it all. And they needed to know that. And until they knew that, Jesus was going to go to work, helping them see him for who he really is. Who he really is. Now, what happens next in Mark's gospel? Mark packs another group of stories together. because there's one more thing we need to know about Jesus, all right? It's not just that he's powerful over nature. It's not just that he is infinitely wise, engaging in a way that would be in their best interest. There's one more piece to seeing Jesus at this point in Mark's gospel that we need to see. And there's 3 stories packaged together. I just want to give you the summary of each of them really, really quickly. In chapter 5, verse 8, they show up in a village. There's a man there who's been possessed by an evil spirit. He's often called a demoniac. Different sermon for a different day. But he has incredible strength that breaks shackles, strength that breaks chains. He's been this way for a long time. He's very scary. It's a very dark situation. Jesus frees him. Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." And in a moment, the man is healed. Authority over nature, authority over evil supernatural right here. Then Jesus comes in contact with a woman who's been sick for 12 years, a woman who's been suffering for 12 years. And once again, if anybody's asking the question, don't you care if, these stories help us answer that. Verse 29, immediately her bleeding stopped and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. She was healed. And then the next story is not someone who's been sick for 12 years, but a girl who is just 12 years old. Interesting details once again that don't build a fable or a myth, but details that come from an eyewitness who knew these people personally. Immediately, the girl stood up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old, and at this, they were completely astonished. So in these collection of stories, we see 3 timeless truths about who the real Jesus really is. Limitless in his power, limitless in his wisdom, and now limitless in his love. Limitless in his love. And if he is not all 3 of those things, he is not a God king worth surrendering your life to. But if he is all 3 of those things, there's no one like him and no one worth trusting but him. See, if he is power and wisdom but not love, that's cool. He can do a great show out there, but I need something in here. I need someone personal who knows me and loves me. If he's just love and wisdom but not power, that's great, but that type of empathy won't solve the evils of this world. That's a God who can be empathetic and close, but not a God who's sovereign and transcendent. And if he's just power and just love, but not wise, I'm not sure that he can work something redemptive out of the brokenness of the human experience. But if he is all 3 at once, and Mark is putting these things together to tell us he is all 3 at once, then we can actually trust him. Now, I mentioned that sort of silly preaching says something like this: he calmed a storm, you got a storm, he'll calm your storm too. Can I get an amen? You know, like that's what I've heard. That's how I've heard this preached before. Let me just say, I get where that's coming from. I understand this idea of storm language. I'm gonna actually use it in just a second. But that type of preaching looks at one scene and doesn't look at the whole story of Mark. It looks at one scene, lifts it out of context, drops it into our context, kind of maybe overpromises for God and then underdelivers, which makes God look like the bad guy or you the bad guy because you didn't have enough faith, and everybody leaves frustrated. It sounds great in theory, but it's the hype that wears off by like 2 o'clock on a Sunday, right? We need more than that, and we have more than that. Because this was a storm in the Sea of Galilee, but Jesus was about to enter into a different type of chaos and destruction. It's not beside the Sea of Galilee, it's on the cross of Calvary as he took on the weight of eternal justice. That is actually the storm that Jesus has already calmed for you to prove to you that he cares. His power, wisdom, and love ultimately seen in the cross. Not an earthly storm on the other side of the globe, a cosmic storm that we could never survive through. The weight of paying for our own sin, but he paid for it. So, here's how I want to say it. Eternal justice is the ultimate storm which Jesus calmed for you. He paid the price that we could not pay. He took our place. Powerful to defeat evil, sin, and death, wise to know the type of perfect payment it would need to be, and loving enough to take your spot personally. This is the storm you can bank on being calmed for you already. And so we do not measure his goodness, his faithfulness, his love or power based on our circumstance. We measure it based on what he's already done in the cross. He has already calmed that storm for you. You can trust him now. Now, as we begin to wrap up, there's something I'm really excited about. This is not the only glassy sea the Bible talks about. The Sea of Galilee turned to glass that day is not the only sea the Bible talks about being stilled and being calm. You guys want to go to the book of Revelation for a second? In the last book of the Bible, book of Revelation, Jesus gives John a picture of cosmic reality, big picture reality. And in that big picture, Jesus gives John a picture of some glassy seas. And when I used to read this, I was so lost, everybody. You ever read the Bible and get so lost? I'm like, a glassy sea? And here's how I pictured it. Shards of glass inside like a big ocean. And that looked really weird and scary to me, terrifying. I was like, a glassy sea, until I realized, oh, glassy can mean something else. Calm, pristine, reflective, peace. Oh, that type of glassy sea. Let me read it to you, Revelation 4. Also in front of the throne, there was what looked like a sea of glass. That's why I got it wrong. A sea of glass, clear as crystal. He's describing a glassy sea. In this cosmic picture of ultimate reality, before the throne of God, there is a calm sea. Sea, once again, meaning chaos and destruction and evil. It was something that would engulf somebody and swallow somebody. And now it is calm. The cosmic battle won. God's peace present, as seen in a glassy sea. The Sea of Galilee in Mark 4, it was a preview of the sea here in Revelation 4, also glassy. There's another one, Revelation 15. And I saw what looked like a sea of glass, glowing with fire, and standing beside the sea, not just a handful of fishermen anymore, but a multitude of Jesus' followers who now stand victorious, who didn't die and perish in the sea of chaos and tumultuous life, but who now stand observing and gazing into a glassy sea. Those who had been victorious over the beast and its image and over the number of its name. If we had more time, I'd show you the beast actually comes out of the sea. A picture of the one causing the chaos, the destruction that the sea is known for. And now, once again, it is calm. Last summer, me and the kids and Carissa, we went to Flathead Lake in Montana for a vacation. And we got to stay through the gift of a friend in a cabin. And of course, during the day, the winds would kick up on Flathead Lake, which is beautiful and big, by the way. In the middle, there's this island called Wild Horse. We took the boat out there. We hiked around. We didn't see any wild horses, but we were let down. But in the mornings and the evenings, I would walk out to the lake. And during those times, the lake was like glass. It was a glassy sea. And there was a beautiful reflection. It was calm. It was quiet. You could see forever. And it was so smooth. And I don't want to sound mystical or hippy-dippy right now, but that calm sea calmed my soul. And that's not because I worship Mother Nature. It's because Jesus is the king over nature. And all of that reminds me of this glassy sea. And I sat there in the calm and the peace of God. Man, I could experience it on the bank of Flathead. This is the type of thing that Jesus wants us to recognize. It's what he wants us to understand. So at the end of Mark 4, at the end of this scene actually, Jesus asks a question to the disciples. Do you have no faith? Which could sound a little harsh. Could sound a little bit direct. But here's what he's saying. Now that you've seen me for who I am, will you trust me now? Will you trust me now? You've seen my power, you've seen my wisdom, you've seen my love. Will you trust me now? And that's the question I want to leave you with. Will you? Here's a prayer that you can pray over the next few moments. Jesus, help me trust you with blank. With blank. Whatever thing you're going through right now, conflict, tension, relationship, leadership, budget, health, disease, cancer, loneliness, isolation, whatever it is, you can trust him in it. Not trust him to get you out of it, but that you would see him for who he really is, the God King with you in it. And we don't evaluate his goodness based on what you're in. We evaluate it based on what he's done. And then we know that he's in it with us. He's in it with us. Because there will be a day that nature, in the text we saw, and evil, in the text we saw, it comes for you. It's going to show up. And on that day, will you know the one who is limitless in power? Will you trust the one limitless in wisdom? Will you love the one limitless in love. That's the invitation of Mark 4. Let me pray for us. I'm gonna pray a little longer than normal because I know what some of us are going through. I know what our world's going through. I just want to ask Jesus to help us trust him. It's a prayer he always answers. Help us trust him in those moments. I'm gonna pray like this. It's just a way of saying, it's over to you. Turn it over to you, giving it to you today, God. Here we go. Jesus, thank you for this scene, Mark 4. Jesus, some of us are going through some don't you care if moments right now. Don't you care if. I just want to pray about some of that. For some of us, we have adult children. We love them so much. And their lives, it just brings about grief and sorrow. We love them. We want you to rescue them and help them. Reveal yourself to them. But we can't control that. So we do trust you with it. We look at what's going on in the Middle East, on the other side of the globe. We can't control that. Our hearts are breaking because of that. We're confused and maybe even scared. We turn that over to you. We trust you with all of our emotions based on current events. For some of us, we know there's a next step of obedience we need to take. It's clear what you want us to do. You've made it really clear in the Bible. We're just not doing it. We just don't trust that it's in our best interest. Help us trust you in it. For some of us, we got some financial stress. It's big, it's looming, it's complicated, it's tough. We just want to honor you with our finances. Help us trust you in it. For some of us, we're in a relationship and we know that there's some habits, some things going on in there that they're out of step with what we say we believe. Help us see why we might hesitate to trust you and give us the strength to trust you even there. For some of us, we're dealing with grief and pain, abusive situations, and we don't know what to do. Jesus, help us forgive, trust you enough to forgive, and trust you enough to establish boundaries and get help, protection. For some of us, the diagnosis just hit with someone we love or in our own lives, and we're just not sure what to do next, and our confidence has been rattled. May the picture of the glassy sea communicate what awaits us with you. Help us trust you now. Jesus, we know because of the cross you are trustworthy. It's in your name we pray. Amen.